The moment you can figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing, the sooner you are able to get about the business of doing that. The way through the challenge is to get still and ask yourself, what is the next right move? Not think about, oh, I got all of this stuff. What is the next right move? And then from that space, make the next right move and the next right move. And not to be overwhelmed by it, because you know your life is bigger than that one moment. You know you're not defined by what somebody says is a failure for you, because failure is just there to point you in a different direction.
When you decide something is a must for you, an absolute must, when you cut off any possible, you say, I'm gonna find the way or I'm gonna make the way. Human beings, when they resolve things, when they make a real resolution inside themselves, which is they raise the standard and they make it a must, they find the way. Think about it in your own life. Haven't you had some area of your life where you raise your standard and your life has never been the same? Maybe at one time in your life you smoked cigarettes, or you did something and you did it for years and you kept trying to change it and kept telling yourself I should. And then one day something happened. Something just clicked you over. Something took you over that kind of tipping point. And inside yourself you said, no more. And it was a very, very different experience, wasn't it? Something inside of you shifted, and what was a should became a must, and you've never gone back.
You got to have passion and drive, and you got to have persistence and perseverance and people and projects. How do we discover our greatness? By upgrading our relationships and by having goals that's beyond our comfort zone. Why? Because it causes you to reinvent yourself. Brian Tracy calls it the danger zone. You want to do something you've never done. So being on his program was a big deal for me.
See, anybody can, whether you will or not. See, that's the question. And here's a good question to ask. We are all buying somebody's plan. The question is, whose? Who's got you talked into doing what you're doing? Who's got you talked into your present plan? See, 10 years from now you will surely arrive. The question is, where? But see, anybody, if you want to, can go searching for a good plan, pick it, and start working it. And sure enough, as the time passes, as it surely will 5 years from now, 10 years from now, then you'll be winding up wearing what you want to wear, driving what you want to drive, living where you want to live, become what you want to become. But now's the time to fix the next 10 years. And who can? Anybody.
Powered by you. You got an idea? You have a dream? Ladies and gentlemen, you've got to take responsibility to make it happen. Your dream, your life, going to the next level will be powered by you. Don't put your destiny in anybody's hand. Nobody's going to care more about your dream than you. Nobody. Nobody's going to work on your stuff more than you.
Most people use their imagination, they use it the wrong way. They imagine what won't work. They imagine something bad happening.
What should we imagine more often, every day?
We should imagine you should see yourself where you want to be. You got to live there. There's a great book. You may be familiar with Stella Adler's book, The Art of Acting. Oh gosh, you got to get it. Stella Adler was a great acting teacher. She was a method acting teacher. She studied under Stanislavski, the Russian acting teacher that originated method acting. Marlon Brando wrote the foreword in her book. He was the first method actor to reach superstardom. And he wrote the foreword in her book. Now, Stella Adler never actually wrote a book. A man named Kissel took all of her teaching, all of her lessons for teaching, and he put them into a book. So when you read her book, you're going to her acting classes. And like Shakespeare said, we're all actors, you know, the world's the stage, and that's true. Well, when you reach a goal, you're gonna act like you're already there. It's already happened intellectually the second you think about it. It's already happened emotionally when you're emotionally involved with it. So it's only a period of time until it manifests in physical form. But because it's not in physical form, we act like we haven't got it yet. Well, so that's why most people stay stuck, because they're acting like they haven't got it yet. Or if I can't act like that, Lewis would see that I haven't got that result, he'll think I'm phony. I gotta quit worrying about what Lewis thinks and start concentrating on what Bob thinks. And so you see yourself, your imagination, you got to be that person. Goethe said that, great philosopher. He said, before you can do something, you first must be something. So you've got to be it intellectually, you've got to be it emotionally. It's like Solomon says, as a person thinks in their heart, the emotional mind. Well, it's only a period of time then until it manifests physically. That's one of the first laws of the universe, is the perpetual transmutation of energy. Energy is moving into form, always. To form, moving into form, through form, back into form again. So we cause it all to happen the way we think and the way we stay locked into ideas.
How should people be developing their imagination on a daily basis in a positive way?
Well, I think they should take time to image what they want. I have a business partner, Sandy Gallagher, who's a brilliant woman, and she rides horses, gaited horses. And she's in Kentucky right now in big shows there. She images herself as a world champion. Every day, she takes the time and she sees herself as a world champion. She sees herself getting the roses, getting the whole thing. And that's the way you should do it. I think you build the image of what you want. I mean, you obviously imaged this studio before you ever built it.
Right.
I mean, everything you see here was part of the image in your mind. But everything you create twice. Once in here, once out here, you know? So you never get an original painting. You always get a duplicate. The picture's in here.
Wow.
So we have to see ourselves with what we want here. Now we've got enormous deterrent in our paradigm. We're conditioned genetically and environmentally. And that conditioning is controlling most people's lives. That's why brilliant people are broke. Brilliant people are unhappy. Brilliant people never really accomplish very much. They're absolutely brilliant, but their paradigm is controlling them. It's all about intellect. They're smart people. But like, you got to consider where we come from. A little particle of energy from mom, a little particle of energy from dad comes swimming along. That's the nucleus of us. Then that goes on for 280 days, attracting more energy until you make your debut on the planet. And then you're programmed environmentally by your environment. So everything that's going on is going right into your subconscious mind. So you come out, you're programmed genetically. We don't know how far it goes back, 4 or 5 generations possibly. Like when I was a young man, I had red hair. My mother didn't have red hair, my dad didn't have red hair. I got a brother and sister and they don't have red hair. Because you think, well, but my mother's father and all his brothers had red hair. So sometimes it jumps a generation. That's why we look like our relatives. It's genetic conditioning. And then there's environmental conditioning. We know almost all welfare recipients are 4th, 5th generation welfare recipients. So this is passed down generation to generation. Now, unfortunately, fortunately, we're all exactly the same. We got exactly the same potential. Our spiritual DNA is perfect. But that perfection never expresses itself properly because of this paradigm. It's conditioning in our subconscious mind. You see so many brilliant people and they don't make it. I had a good friend of mine, Milt Campbell. He won the gold medal in decathlon.
Wow. I was a decathlete.
Were you where?
I was an All-American decathlete.
Well, Milt won in Melbourne in '56.
Wow, okay.
And he won in '52 in Helsinki. When,
Wow.
Bob Mathias won his second gold. He won the gold in '48 and then in '52.
Wow.
Milt told me, if he told me once, he told me 1,000 times. Every time I was with him. You know, there was a lot of athletes in schools that were better than me, but they quit.
Yeah.
Dopamine is a very misunderstood molecule. It's often talked about only in the context of reward. Like, I'm going to work to this goal, I'm going to build my company, I'm going to, get tenure as a professor, whatever it is, and you reach it and you get this dopamine reward. And indeed, that's true. But what's often not discussed is that dopamine is secreted en route to rewards while you pursue rewards. Now, the ability to tap into that system, to subjectively amplify that pathway of reward in pursuit of goals, is an absolute game changer when it comes to things like anything challenging that of long duration or uncertainty or getting through this COVID, pandemic situation. But the amazing thing is, remember, the brain only does 5 things, and we get to decide which of those sensations and perceptions have relevance and which ones don't, or which ones are attached to a goal and which ones aren't. So growth mindset, in its purest form, is the attachment of these reward systems to the effort process, to the friction process, and not just to obtaining a reward. And just as a kind of final point to that, there's a very well-known body of literature in neuroscience, at least among neuroscientists, that talks about something called reward prediction error. And it says, if you can dose the dopamine subjectively as you go through the pursuit of something, and then have a lot of dopamine when you reach that thing, it's very likely that you're going to reinforce that circuit. There will be neural plasticity, and that circuit will become stronger. So the next time you will revisit those sets of behaviors. The opposite can happen too, where you're in real anticipation of something. This is going to be great, this is going to be great, this is going to be great. And then you reach that goal and it's kind of underwhelming. And that generally triggers this circuit that I referred to earlier, this kind of disappointment or pro-depressive circuit. So dopamine is involved in reward, but it's also involved in the pursuit of rewards. And so as you reach a milestone, or as you tell yourself, I'm on the right track, this friction I'm feeling, this late night, this early morning, this hard conversation with somebody that doesn't feel good, I'm going to tell myself this is for a larger purpose. That's that subjective insertion, that abstraction that we were talking about earlier. And when you start releasing dopamine to those kinds of things, there's essentially no limit on the number of things you can do or the energy to do them. So just as a last point about dopamine, when we're in effort, we're always secreting adrenaline. We're always in pursuit, and it's draining, it's tiring. Dopamine has this beautiful capacity to buffer adrenaline. And you know this, you've experienced this before, because if you've ever been working really, really hard, maybe your team is depleted, everything's just a mess, and somebody cracks a joke, and all of a sudden, in an instant, it's like everything's reframed. That couldn't have been hormonal. Hormones work on the schedule of like hours to days to weeks. It had to be neurochemical. It absolutely had to be neurochemical, and that neurochemical is dopamine.
I'm telling you, I've never ever had a plan B. I made a full commitment that I'm gonna go and be a bodybuilding champion. I made a full commitment that I'm gonna be in America. I made a full commitment that I'm gonna get into show business, and I'm going to be a leading man. No matter what it takes, I will do the work.
And fear was a huge part of this. I had let fear talk me out of doing what I wanted to do, but eventually I came around.
And accepting that some things will be for a season, and that a season could be 3 months, 3 years, or 13 years, and then redesigning it. Not only financially, spiritually, emotionally, and physically.
I often talk to people who are trying to make a difficult life decision, and they're weighing out the costs and the benefits of making the life decision, And one of the things I always talk to them about is, wait a second, that's an incomplete analysis. You have to weigh out the benefits and the costs of doing this. And you have to weigh out the costs and benefits of not doing it.
And if you don't know what it is that you showed up to do, if you don't know why you're here, I encourage you to find out what your purpose is here. What is the meaning of your life?
Every moment of adversity has those two things. Pain always leaves a gift. Always.
Do you ever hear of a 3 or 4-year-old afraid of the dark? All the time. Where'd they learn that fear? Who taught them that the dark outside is any different than the dark inside? Where'd they learn that?
And then, if we choose to play together more and learn from each other more, then I can create another needlepoint movement.
You write down what you've done every single day that scared you. You put the date, the action, put it on a Post-it, stick it in the jar, and a year or so from now, you open it up and see the things that had scared you, the things that may no longer faze you, and how you've grown personally and professionally.
Okay, so what I'm able to do is if I want something, I go into the future in my brain, which is powerful, and I visualize exactly what I want. So I'm there, I'm in my future.
Doubt is an enemy. I'm telling you, it'll destroy your life and destroy your chances and empty your bank account and empty your heart.
there's no relationship between that and eroding your self-confidence. In other words, self-confidence is really self-trust. So the first thing is, the people I know that are really happy are very self-aware. In fact, the best entrepreneurs I know are very self-aware. They're aware of their shortcomings, right? They want to improve them. They want to get to the next version of themselves all the time.
In a 24-hour day, making this much, and I could spend the same amount of time with the same amount of energy if I architect it right at this much. And with this much, I can help so many more people that I love. So that's how I look at all perspectives.
Now it's time to literally biohack the impact that fear has had on you. That fear no longer becomes your fortress, fear becomes your fuel.